All right, first big question. We've
Yeah.
kind of set the table. So can you identify a eureka moment in your life, or sorry, in your education journey or personal project journey when you knew that this industry is what you wanted to build your life around? What was your eureka moment?
Yeah. So originally I went to school for fine art, which was painting and sculpting, like traditional stuff. And that kind of led into some commercial jobs, snowboard and skateboard design, kind of clothing, advertising. I really wanted to go into comic books. All of that was a little risky and hard to kind of make a living. So I kind of like jumped out of art for a couple years and went and did Mandarin translation and got burnt out on that. Went back to school for 3D. I thought I would go into a 3D job, like something in video games where you do character modeling, something like that, because that would be like a consistent job to make a living as an artist. When I was in art school, so grad school, I learned that you could use 3D to do concept design. So more like painting, but with 3D in the painting. And so that was my eureka moment, where in school I was taking a class with a teacher who became a good friend of mine and later colleague, who actually got me my first internship, which led to all my work in Hollywood. It was his class that I learned you could do concept design with 3D, and that just changed everything, my whole life really. But at that point I dropped a lot of the other classes that I was taking for 3D, compositing and lighting, rigging, all the things that you would do in a 3D pipeline, and I just switched everything to design. So that was a big moment for me. That was about 2008, I want to say.
What kind of projects, so after that, what kind of projects were you working on? Like what kind of movies were they asking you to do conceptual designs for?
So after I graduated, you mean, like once I was in the industry?
Yep.
Yeah, so I went right into a company called the Aaron Sims Company, which is in Hollywood. And they're always working on like 10 to 20 projects. So my very first day I worked on Dune, believe it or not, which didn't come out for 10 years. That's something I could talk about too. Everything you work on is usually in a pitch phase. You're trying to get the green light from the studios. So about half of what we do is trying to get the money and get the yes. But I started right into a Transformers movie, Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, X-Men First Class. So all these movies were going on right away, right when I started. So my first year, I think I worked on about 12 feature films. And then from there, I averaged about 10 to 15 films a year. A lot of superhero and fantasy, sci-fi films.
So talk a little bit about rejection in this process. How often are you creating and doing something and you're putting your heart and soul in it and you present it and it gets rejected and you're like, okay, back to the drawing board? Like how often does that happen?
Like most of the time. A big part of the job is obviously having the skills and talent to do it, but then also being able to handle rejection and being resilient to feedback and critique, because it's, even in the classes I'm teaching, I see students are pretty sensitive when they're first going into the art world, and you have to really love and care about the work you're doing enough to make it good, but then be able to like throw it away and start over and over every single day. I have a particular project that, two projects that come to mind. One was Milton, the writer from the 1700s who wrote Paradise Lost. It's basically about the war in heaven. We spent a year designing the angels, these really cool armored angels that were going to fight in heaven, God versus Satan. And they spent $20 million on the previs and the pitch, and then it got turned down. And it was some of the most beautiful artwork I've ever seen come out of Hollywood. So that was my first taste of like watching something amazing come to life and then get shelved, as they call it, and never come to life. Alex Proyas was the writer and director. And then I had a moment where I was working on Snow White and the Huntsman, which is a Disney film, where we spent, I want to say 6 to 7 months working on the 7 dwarves, but they're 7 warriors from different parts of the world. About 10 artists, I don't know how much money they spent, but we ultimately are creating multiple characters. We end up with 30 total that are approved. And this is coming from every cook in the kitchen. So you got the producers, directors, the writers, the executives, all have to say yes to this stuff to narrow it down to the 30. And then the head producer takes these 30 images and lays them on the floor in front of his 8-year-old kid and says, okay, pick which one you like the most. Yeah. And that was my first taste of like, does it really matter? All the money and time and effort and meetings so an 8-year-old can say what he likes. So that was a little bit hard for me because I had to not lose faith in the whole process and still act like it mattered. So that was a hard one for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so I think if you could just reiterate this, we talked about this, but in 30 seconds or less, what skills do you think are important in order to create or in order to make a career out of this? So if you could just restate those skills again, what skills do you think are important in order to make a career out of content creation? Yeah, finding ways to stay inspired is really important because if you don't have the motivation to do it, like you're not gonna make great art. To be creative, you need to be inspired. So you got to figure out ways to do that, whether you're traveling, having lots of other hobbies outside of it. You know, your family and friends can be a huge inspiration. So that's like the number one. And then the second one was adaptability. So being able to being excited about learning new things like forever. So staying curious and all that, but also being able to constantly learn and adapt to the changes. Again, like AI is coming right now. It's something I'm dealing with personally. And then the third one is networking. So making your employers happy and keeping them happy. It's easy to make them happy once. It's hard to keep them happy forever. So figuring out how to do that, just being good at communicating with them and ultimately forming friendships with your employers would be really good advice, I would say. Awesome. Well, we got some valuable information for my students, and I appreciate it. All right, excited to have content creator, editor, brilliant visionary, director, a self-made guy. I'm excited to have Isaac Halasima here with us today. Isaac, thank you for being here on this interview. Yeah, malo ele, bro. Cool things you've done in the past. I just looked you up on IMDb. Dry Comedy Bar. I think VidAngel approached you to help you do that. American Masters, a new documentary that is being recognized worldwide, and you're about to go to New York for an award for it, being nominated in Waterman. That's awesome. And then The Last Descent, you helped find funding and created a fantastic movie called The Last Descent. You created a lot since college. Imagine Dragons, you're a part of their history, being part of their history and watching them bloom and blow up throughout the world. So you've done a lot. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring you some questions real quick, and we're going to talk about some advice that you're going to give future filmmakers, content creators, people in video productions. Okay, so you had a eureka moment somewhere along the line. You had a eureka moment in your either educational journey or your vocation in this area. So when did you know your eureka moment? Like, this is what I want to do, because you have a diverse background. I mean, you grew up performing, singing, dancing, acting. You won awards for acting. I think Zinj, you were in a show called Zinj, right? Yeah, I won an Emmy when I was 16 with that one. As weird as that was. And it's weird because I'm an introvert. So like in high school, it didn't work well for me because you kind of stick out when you're the only brown guy in school already, but then throwing a couple Emmys and stuff, and it's even worse. So before you had all this experience in college and then professionally, you were in front of the camera doing a lot of things. And then there was a moment where you decided, I want to be behind the camera and I want to be a storyteller and a content creator. Talk a little bit about that. When was your eureka moment? Well, that's, it's funny. I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I never wanted to do anything like that. It just happened to be the things that I was decent at doing. That's where you end up, that's where you land. And so my thing was, it was in 5th grade. We watched the movie Glory. They showed it to every 5th grade school. And there's an irony to this too, that a movie in school would do so much for me, but I watched it and the movie tore me to pieces. Star Wars made me love movies, but Glory made me
just see something totally different.
Was
like
that Civil War, Matthew Broderick, right?
Matthew Broderick, Carrie Elways, Denzel Washington won his first Oscar with it. Morgan Freeman, it's one of his first big movies. Like, they were all kind of unknowns when it started, you know? And so, but the movie just, it inspired me, because the theme of the movie in the end is they didn't care if they lived or died, it was respect. They wanted to show that they were worth just as much as the next man, you know, and that they wanted to fight. And I love the way it moved me and the way it felt inside. And that was the moment when I said, I want to make movies, you know, I want to do it, you know, and I had other things I wanted to do in my life, but that was the one that kind of overrode everything. And that's how I ended up using, you know, it's kind of like, if you have a dream, if you dream of doing something in your life, the best thing to do is figure out your pathway in, because there is no right way. And so for me, I knew that I kept getting in front of cameras. People kept putting me in stuff. So why not use that as my path to eventually land behind? And that's what I did. You know, that's kind of what I did in the short run. I mean, the story is a lot longer than that, obviously, you know, but I knew that when I got the chance to edit and to show people, like, to do something to show that I'd be good behind the scenes, I needed to show it. You know, and that's what it was. I ended up getting hosting a TV show when I was 13, and for fun, they let me edit on their Avid system when I was 15, the third season of the show.
Was that tape to tape?
This was like back when nonlinear was barely heard of, you know? So they put me on the Avid because that's all there was. And they said, okay, let's show you how to do this. And I just like ate it up, didn't go to bed, and I cut. And the piece was good enough that they put it on the show. And just from there, I looked at all the professionals and all the people around me, and I was like, I can do this. And it was just from that point on, I volunteered for free. And at KSL, the TV station, I said, look, yeah, I know I'm on camera and all this stuff, but what can I just do to not leave? You know, what can I do to just be here as often as possible? And so from 16 to 18, I was working for free at KSL, running cameras, doing all this stuff, anything they would let me do legally. And yeah, so it's just kind of, I had a dream from that point on, you know? I think that the biggest thing for any kid or any person to do is to get around people that do it, because it makes it real. It makes it possible. You know, it's easy in the world today for people to constantly tell you that you can't do something, or there's something blocking you, or the system's against you. And it's easy to see that because nothing's going on right now in your life. But if you get around people doing it, it suddenly seems like you can do it. You know, it's like learning to walk. You know, would you have tried walking if the people around you weren't doing it? You know, it's like you want to do it. So just do it. You know, find the people that do it, see them, and then I don't know, that's our group at UVU. That's what we were. You know, I made sure to stay at KSL and stay working with NBC while we were at UVU, because I felt like if everyone around me saw that I was a nobody somehow working with the professionals, then they would believe they could do it too. And look at us today, you know.
That's right. So what's the hardest thing that about getting through the education or the vocation in this industry?
Well, the hardest thing I'd say, education-wise, is constantly changing. So it's really easy to get lost in function, I'd say, especially if we're talking specifically about film and television, and even I don't really do a lot of YouTube stuff and all that stuff, but like, you know, when it comes to film, I guess my music videos, that's where they live, is like my Imagine Dragons stuff, that's where they live. But it's like it's always changing, and so to focus on the editing system and being the master of the editing system and all those things, it's really kind of not the smartest thing to do. The smarter thing to do is to focus on what people like and what you like. Find out where they align and then go for it. You know, it's like, that's why when I decided I was going to go full-time into film, I said I'm going to watch 15 movies a week. And that's my game film, because then I can study a movie, I can see something and study the way it makes me feel, which is a hard thing to teach, but study the way it makes me feel, and then go back someday and go, okay, how did that make me feel that way? And then put it into my own word, you know, because if you become good at an editing system 5 years from now, you're not going to matter. You become the master of like when the red cameras came out in 2006 or whatever, everyone's like, we got to master the red. Now you get made fun of for it. You know, it's like, it's one of those things, but lenses and the way they treat the picture and the way they do this stuff. If you watch actually my gold music video for Imagine Dragons, I got into a fight with, not a fight, But I got into a bit of a disagreement with Interscope Records because I believed I could save us money so I could get more lights. And if you see it, I mean, I spent over $100,000 on lights, but if you see it, I wanted more. And if we didn't use reds, if I changed it up a little bit, and they're like, no, whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. I still shot with my 5D along with the reds, and then waited till after they watched it. They're like, yes, this is great. And I'm like, all right, so which ones are 5D? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'd say, about an eighth of the shots in this are 5D. And they're like, no. And so they wanted to pick them. They couldn't find them. And it's because when you know what you want to get out of something, you get it. It's so like mastering a thing, like a technical thing, is going to set you back. Focus on the art itself.
So what advice are you going to give? So the advice you're giving future content creators would be, just restate that real quick. That was perfect. For what advice would you give future content creators? Oh,
do it. Make what you love. That's it. Make what you love. Like, know what you love and love it. Watch everything and see why you love that. Because if you just focus on the things you know now, you're also you're gonna get left behind. Like you really have to watch everything. You have to know, because that's the key. Really, it's like sales. It's like anything. See what you love in this, like everything that you love that aligns with what you're seeing, and figure out how to put that into your work, because that's where you're gonna shine. You're gonna make what you love, and you know that other people will love it because you've seen it before. And so that's what I've always done.
So the issue I'm currently struggling with right now with my students is they just want to go out and film, but they have no idea of structure. And I'm like, hey, you guys, we got to have a plan in place. We should have a storyboard. Let's talk about your camera shots, angles, and movements. They're like, let's just go out there and film whatever. I'm like, planning is important. Organization is important. So do me a favor, talk a little bit about how important organizational skills are for you, because you've done like for example, The Descent. That was a full, huge movie. Yeah. Talk about the planning and everything that took place.
Well, what's funny is movies are actually a lot easier than docs, and a lot of people don't think that. I'd say my last doc, we'll take the Waterman, the one I did with Jason Momoa just barely, that's nominated for the Emmy. That one, when you watch it, it's 90 minutes, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. I'll send you a link. You can just you can
please
show it to you guys if you want. I shot 65 interviews in 4 different countries. I did 3 recreations that I wanted to look like films, so that people felt like they were watching a movie that happened to be a doc, not a doc that had little recreations in it, and so I had a big focus on those things, but it required so much planning. The one thing I would recommend to anyone, but specifically my field, that wants to get into directing and video content and those things, is you need to edit and know how to edit in your head, because otherwise you will kill yourself in the edit, and you'll realize all the things you should have done out there. But if you're out there working and you're going like, hey, I need something that does this, because if I'm going to go from here to here, I need something to go in between there, and me, I base all my stuff on feelings. Like when I do a script, for instance, like the recreations on this, I like, there's a scene where Duke's sad, he cramps up and he sinks and he almost dies. And I had a song, because I'm very musical. I'm a dancer, so I'm a trained dancer, and I'm a choreographer, so of course I'm going to choreograph. Well, on my scripts, I write down songs on the top for my actors. I say, listen to this song, because this is the feeling I want. And so when they do it, in their head, they're hearing the song and they're doing those things. And then for me, I'm also hearing that and saying to myself, okay, if I cut to this, what would I do to keep this feeling here? And that's how I do things, So organization, you will kill yourself. I mean, you have to learn. Again, it's like learning to walk. You're going to fall. You're going to hit things. You're going to hit walls. But the thing is no matter how good you get at this, I've been doing this now, technically for 30 years now. And no matter how prepared I am, something still goes wrong. Something still hits me out of there, and the thing is you got rid of the stuff you knew how to stop. Because anything that kills your ability to keep a feeling going is going to hurt your project. And so if you're out there just to make something, like, oh, let's go. That hype's a lot of fun until you all get tired, until you have to wait for a battery to charge, and then it's hard to turn it back on again. So that's why planning is important. It's like, if I want this feeling to live, what do I do? The Last Descent, the other one I have is the actor, the final scene with that one, I have him with a baby. And I wanted him to feel isolated and emotional. And so I told my crew, you can't talk to him the whole day. And he wanted that too. But it was like that. I gave him my music again. I had 3 songs to listen to. And I was like, no one talk to you, no one do any of this stuff, because I need them to feel this way. But to do that, I also had to organize the way everyone moved, the way the sets did everything. My first assistant director is the one that really handles that, but I had to tell him how I wanted it to do, and then he functions it. You know, when you go to a movie set, director's technically one of the quietest guys. You know, I work with the actors. I step back, I let my first assistant director call action and cut, and then let him scream at everybody. And then my DP in charge of the camera, he's yelling at the big part of the crew. So it's all designed to keep the feeling alive. You know, you need it, because, I mean, we're not dumb. We know when someone's pretending. We know when someone's pretending to make you feel a certain way. We have plenty of friends that lie to us, and we're like, you liar, you know? And so the idea with our industry is to, how do you keep a genuine feeling on the set? And that's why you organize. That's why. You know, I could tell you 100 ways to organize, but it really has to be aimed at the feeling you're trying to get.
Thank you. That was awesome. All right, so last question. So list 3 things real quick, 1 minute or less. 3 things that you think these are skills are important in order to make a career in video productions. 3 things.
3 things. Well, I think they're more, let me think here. Oh, it's a little harder than I thought it would be now I'm thinking about it. You know, I'd say the first thing I tell someone is the first thing I ever heard when I got in the industry is, you have to love it so much you would do it if you weren't getting paid. Straight up. You know, hanging out with Dan from Imagine Dragons, he gave me the best advice when we first would talk about things, because I mean, people don't know how hard it was for them at the beginning. And like, I was hanging with those guys when they get 10 guys at a show, and then they'd be playing In and Out in St. George. You know, that's what they were doing. Like, they were doing anything to play. And what he always said is, like, sing because you just love to sing. Don't sing because of anything else, because if you feel like you would die if you weren't doing it, and you would be doing it anyway, then you're doing the right thing. Because then you'll be able to take the hits, you'll be able to take all the horrible things that come with it. I mean, I work in the arts. Like, everything that someone says that's mean is like, it's a shot to the soul. So you got to be ready to take that and still go with it, because you just love doing it. And so it's really like, don't do something because you want to be famous, excuse me, or you want to, like, you know, just, I don't know. There's so many reasons people get into the industry, but the ones that survive it are the ones that love it no matter what. You know, that would do it. Like, that's what I tell singers when they come to me. Like, you know, when I was with the Interscope, you know, it's like, well, what do you do to make it? I'm like, sing. They're like, what? I'm like, sing everywhere. Sing because you like making people happy. Because if that's not what you're doing it, then you shouldn't be doing it. You know, you shouldn't get paid, because they're the ones that you're trying to get them to be so good at what you do, they're willing to give you money to do it. You know, the second thing I'd say is be willing to work for free. You know, and it's a sucky thing to do. But like me in high school, I used to get in trouble all the time for hiding in closets, and in college too, actually. I think you were around when I would do it, where I'd wait till all the janitors in schools locked up and then come back out and keep working. You know, and I remember so many Sundays at UVU, the janitors finally found my hiding spot, and they'd come and get me because I was hiding at UVU editing, you know, just trying to make everything a little bit better. Because it goes back to when I was a dancer. I wasn't the best dancer, but I knew no one was going to work as hard as me. And so as soon as class was over, I would stay there until I knew I was good enough to be on the front row. That I was good enough to play with the best. Not to be the best, but to play with the best. Because that's all I really want. You know, and so that's what it was. So it's I'd say that's the second thing is be just a willingness to work for free, you know. And really the third thing I'd say is if you have a chance to go to college, and it's weird because I tell people so many times college is a waste at times, but this is one of those few times where it can benefit you. You know, find a place with a good internship program, because that's, like I was saying earlier, like getting around professionals is how you get in. You know, when I worked with NBC, I interned with NBC, and when I showed up as an intern, my goal when I showed up as an intern was to make myself so valuable they couldn't stand the thought of me leaving. You know, I was supposed to be working. I was like, hey, they want me here 20 hours a week for my internship. I'm gonna do 60, and I'm gonna learn the cameras. I'm gonna do everything I can to be so beneficial to them that they need me on their team. And that's what it was. You know, it helped me learn things. Like one guy, he wanted more of a CNN style of how his stories went, and so I watched tons of CNN, found the parts of it I like to do and that I knew I could do, and then went with that style. And next thing you know, he's the one that got me paid, you know? And so it's kind of, and that style, a lot of I learned there is still with me today. So it also helps you open your mind and helps you learn. But college, you know, it did two things for me. It wasn't the degree, so I still don't have it. You know, it gave me a chance to get through the door, because the hardest part of this industry is getting through the door. You know, you could get, I mean, my videos on YouTube, I think someone totaled it. I've got over 7 billion views on my videos on YouTube, but yet no one knows who I am. You know, so it's kind of a funny thing that happens. You know, that doesn't matter. What matters is figure out how to get through the door. And college is a way to get through the door, because alumni take care of alumni, and then you can prove what you're worth. And then also, while you're in college, surround yourself with people that like to work. It's the one thing I regret about college, is not finding more, because I'd say only about 30% of our group and friends at UVU kind of fell off to the side. The rest are hardworking professionals, and we help each other out still today. You know, like me, you call, I'm going to go, you know, it's just how it works. It's like I take care of my friends because I love them, and we all understand each other, and they will do that for you. So that was something that we got in college. And college, it's not necessarily what you're taught to go to college for, you know, but it really is a special tool you can use to your advantage. I knew what I wanted to do, and I used it. You know, my internship got me with, you know, the day after my internship ended, I had a full-time job, and I was the youngest producer over the sports department KSL had ever had. And then the year out, like 6 months after that, I was NBC's producer for the Olympics. And it wasn't me trying to do all that. It was just me making myself valuable to them. And the more value I had to them, the more freedom I got. Like, they never checked my hours. They just said, we'll just mark you for 40 hours a week, because we know you're probably going to do more. But if you do less, it was because it was all you needed to do. All they cared about was what I gave them. They didn't care anymore. So working for free, making yourself valuable, and using something to get you through the door, college is the best one. It really is, you know, to get you through a door, because you could beat the door of any TV station you want for as long as you want. You're going to have a hard time getting to the right HR person to go in. But a college helping you make your college look good, so they'll help you.
All right, Taylor Sequel, Sky Pointe Media, excited to have a longtime Las Vegas journalist, Ron Futrell, a local TV and radio host, has covered sports here in Las Vegas since 1984. I mean, if there's been an event in Las Vegas in the 80s, 90s, and even today, it's sports, he's been at it. From the rise and fall of the Running Rebels to boxing to Raiders and to Golden Knights, we're excited to have Mr. Ron Futrell with us. Ron, thank you for being on this interview.
My pleasure, Taylor. Always a pleasure to hang out with you. And don't ask me to sing in front of you, okay? You'll kick me off the island.
That'll be out of bounds. I won't make you sing.
But glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Ron, you're going to be speaking to all my video production students. And so one of the first things that I want to ask you is, what was your eureka moment? So was it growing up? Were you in high school? When did you have that eureka moment that you really wanted to pursue sports and broadcast? Did it come in school? Did it come in sports? Did it come in college? What happened?
It came, first of all, when I couldn't be a pilot. Okay, that was my first choice, was to fly. Back then, in the early to mid 70s, you had to have perfect vision without corrective lenses. You couldn't have glasses or contacts or anything. You had to have 20/20 vision, or they would not let you anywhere near a cockpit. That's not the case now, fortunately, but back then it was. And so I'd taken classes, all sorts of things to become a pilot. And when that didn't happen, I said, okay, what's plan B? Plan B is, I always liked watching local news as a kid growing up in Southern California. I'd watch Channel 7, Eyewitness News. I have no idea why I watched them. I just got familiar with it, liked it. I listened to radio all the time. I had favorite radio stations. Music was a big deal to me as a kid. And so I had that. So then my backup plan was, hey, why not do something in the media? Let's see where this goes. So I started taking journalism classes at a local junior college and then later BYU. And so just worked my way through that route, and also worked my way to places trying to get experience to do this because it's a unique industry in that sense. So Eureka moment. I don't know that there was ever a eureka moment. I mean, I did it because I probably thought it would impress girls early on in my years. That's why I play the guitar. Okay, it's like I thought, okay, this is gonna impress the gals. So yeah, being on the radio or doing that sort of stuff or being on TV might be impressive there. So anyway, that there was never really a eureka moment other than, yeah, let's go with Plan B, and Plan B has worked out pretty well for me. I'm happy with it.
Awesome. And then, so you're served a mission, I know, in Ireland, I believe.
Yes.
Grew up in Southern California, served a mission in Ireland, went to school in California, and then to BYU. So at BYU, what was the hardest thing for you getting through that education of the vocation? What was the hardest thing?
Well, I didn't get through it. How about that? I mean, first of all, I didn't graduate. I wouldn't recommend that route for anybody. But back when I was going this route, having practical experience was more important than an education. Now they won't look at you unless you have a degree, and I think that's a little bit of an issue, but that is what it is. Back then, it was, let me look at your tape, or let me listen to your tape, let's see how you sound, and see if you'll fit. Boom, and that was it. So my goal at BYU was to be able to get a tape of some sort, get a reel, as they're called today, to be able to show somebody what I could do. I remember trying out to be a weatherman at KBYU and failed miserably. I'd love to have that tape nowadays to see how bad that was. I just know I failed. I know I failed because they didn't call back, so I didn't get the job. But I remember going into radio stations in the Provo Orem Metroplex and applying for jobs and taking my tape that I had made at my junior college, my reel, to them to try to get jobs there. I didn't. I eventually got my first break. It was sort of crazy the way that happened, but I got it in Salt Lake after I'd gotten married and then moved up there. So my motivation wasn't to find girls anymore because I had found her. And so, it was then just a matter of working my way up through the business, radio first, a TV job, a part-time TV job in Salt Lake, until I could find a full-time TV job. And back then, like I said, the business was different then, and they judged you more on just what they could see in your ability than what you had knowledge, book learning wise, which in a way still should be the case today, I think, in so many ways, because you can't. And I'm not talking anti-school because I taught at UNLV, so I'm not talking anti-education of this, but you got to be able to do the job, and it's hard to learn that through sitting in a classroom with a book. You just got to go out and do it. My class, when I taught at UNLV, it was, let's just do it, everybody. Our class is gonna focus on doing the job, not so much about learning the rules. Just let's do it.
That's awesome. I like that approach. I like that.
Yeah.
Talk about organizational skills. How important, so these students are learning how to juggle their time and organize things in your day-to-day stuff. Like, you can't be on too long because you're about to do this thing for the Raiders. So how important is organization throughout your day-to-day and to get those deadline done before you go on the air? Oh,
it's getting crazier too with more sports in Las Vegas. It's getting the burden is getting much more difficult. I don't know what I'd do without my iPhone giving me alerts, giving me messages and things at different times, and still I come up short and can't get them all. But it does require that, a lot of organization, and I'm not that anal with those sort of things, and so it does require me to have. There's so many things nowadays that I've got to do. I mean, the week piles up on you early on. It piles up early in the week on, hey, we need this, I've got to shoot this, got to go here. Who's going to do that? We have a staff of 4 people on air here, so we can divide that up pretty well. But
in
still,
the sports department, you have 4 people on air for the sports department?
Yes, and a producer. So because we do some live shows on Sundays. We do all of our live newscasts, and that's what sort of attracted me to the business. Again, and I joke about, you want to do, and maybe it's not that much of a joke. You want to initially, when you're younger, you want to do things that the gals are going to like. Okay, that's a pretty typical male concept right there. But I also like doing a job that has an absolute deadline. multiple absolute deadlines a day, because I can be a bit of a procrastinator. And so I need to know that my hit is at 6:20. Okay. So I know if my hit is at 6:20 and then again, it's at 11:20. That's working in my head, that I've got to get, I'm back timing everything to make sure I don't hit that I don't miss my mark there. And if you're not able to handle absolute deadlines, this might not be the business for you. So I'll be a little bit open there with that. But some of us, like me, I need an absolute deadline. You can't go to a director and say, listen, I'm not ready. Fill the time with something else. I've got to still put some finishing touches on a couple of more stories. I don't think I can do it. You can't, you do that once, maybe. The second time you do it, you're done. You can't miss your deadlines. You have absolute deadlines for your job, and you got to hit them. And so I hit them. If nothing else, I've hit my deadlines. And you got to know that what kind of person you are, and analyze yourself a little bit to go, am I the kind of person that can handle, or maybe absolute deadlines drive you nuts? I need them or I procrastinate. So if you're that kind of person, go forward. If not, there's a lot of room for all sorts of salespeople out there for many things. No, and I mean that seriously.
Yeah.
Is that, be honest with yourself enough to go, okay, this is what I like. This is what I need. This is what I can do. I like the energy of a newsroom. I like that energy when things are happening, when big events are going on. I like that energy that's in a newsroom of, hey, you've got to run out on set right now. Something, they fired a coach, breaking news, go at it and wing it. Okay, I'll do that. I'm fine with that. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, you got to be ready for that too. So
in a minute or less,
okay,
talk about just 3 quick skills that that you think are important for these young kids to know going into video productions or going into broadcast today. What are 3 quick skills that they absolutely need to master to reach a level of success in broadcast?
Communication, number 1. Being able to communicate. Know your audience, and that's sort of the idea of communicating is, and I like when I say communicating, you don't always have to use high-level fancy words to make it sound like you're the smartest person in the room. No, especially when you're doing sports, okay? I like using this example is many times you'll hear some people on air say the person suffered multiple contusions and abrasions. And I go, contusions and abrasions? How many doctors are there in your audience? Are you talking to your audience? No, cuts and bruises, not contusions and abrasions. They're cuts and bruises. And that's communicating with your audience. I like to, and this is in the same line, so I might not definitely go to 3 things here. I often, if I've got writer's block and putting a story together, and I don't think I'm a great writer, but I will sometimes consider, and you've probably seen me do this with you in the newsroom before, of a time where I run a story by you or I want to talk to you. I picture myself sitting on a bar stool, if you will, or at a restaurant or somewhere with my buddies, telling them about the game. And that's the way I write the story. So that it becomes, hey, I don't know what happened to the Rams last night. They really had a rough time at making things happen. Okay, there's an intro right there to a story. I'm not going to say the Raiders sucked on air, but I would say, wow, the Raiders got blasted by the Bears, one of the worst teams in football. I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I was watching the game. Okay, there's an intro. Write that and put that and learn how to communicate with your audience on a very, you almost cannot be, so I'll add to that, you almost cannot be too grassroots in your communications and comfortable in your communications. I've never come up with anybody, a student that I had or anybody that I've seen that has gone too far that direction. I've seen people, many a times, people go the wrong direction and try to be so intelligent, so smart, and so educated in their writing that it becomes convoluted and stiff, and you're not talking to your people. So that's probably the biggest advice. So I know that's not 3, but you could probably break that down into 3 somehow.
Sure. Well, I know you're busy.
Makeup. Wear good makeup.
Wear good makeup.
Do your hair. I haven't done my hair yet. You know.
And the best thing I like about you is you're always just very genuine. You are who you are, and you don't change for anybody, and that's how you portray it. And I think it's fantastic.
I hope so. And that part on air, let's go here, and I'll say how this fits. If you're going to be on air in a local TV market or radio or somewhere out there on air, people, I don't think we're good enough actors and actresses to fake people into being something that we're not. You can tell. You can watch somebody on air, and if you watch them night and night over and over again, and you hear their beats and you feel their beats and you what they're saying and what they're doing, you can tell we aren't good enough actors and actresses to hide who we are. And so just find out who you are, be yourself on air, and enjoy it. It's a fun business. I'm glad I went into it. It's I still want to learn how to fly at some point, but I do really enjoy this business. It's been fun for me. I've been blessed, and I didn't say lucky for a reason. I mean blessed. I've been blessed to have a career as long as I have here in this town, and not, and still I still think I'm faking it. I still think in many ways I'm faking it, but I'm still doing it, and it's working. So I'll keep it up.
Well, we appreciate your time, Ron Futrell, Channel 8 News Now, and just a staple here in Las Vegas when it comes to journalism and sports, and you've seen the rise and fall of a lot of things, and we just appreciate you taking time to talk to the students. Thank you so much, sir.
Taylor, my pleasure, and if I can come in person sometime, you let me know.
Absolutely, I will hold you to that. I appreciate it.
I would love to. I like the interaction. I love talking to groups. I love talking to students. And I could go on for hours, because I used to do that with my class. It was 2.5 hours at UNLV on a Tuesday night, so I had to do a lot of talking then. So yes, thank you for having me, Taylor.